right. Welcome everyone. This week's show is going to be a little different in format. We're not going to do our usual happy-go-lucky intro and all that for obvious reasons, unless you've been living under a rock.
You had to have heard of at least one of these, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
We're all here. That's a good thing.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
All five of us are here. We're not ish, which is a good thing. We were originally going to discuss the Shannara Chronicles, but that's taken a back seat.
And this week happened, guys.
Yes. Yeah. This week, this last 10 days, this month, pretty much January can bite it for all we really cares.
Yep.
So we're just gonna chat and talk about these people, and some are gonna have more to talk about than others, but listeners, next handy you may want some. Lord knows we do.
Although, I don't know. Kind of my thought on discussing this is not so much to be sad, although we are all sad and we're all mourning, but also to kind of, in a way, yes, that we enjoy their work, if you know, to some degree. They left these things behind, and I've seen a couple of posts on social media that talk about, like, you know, why do we mourn famous people who are celebrities who pass away? Like, why? Like, we never, you know, especially if we never met them or have no personal connection to them. But it's like, well, you know, the characters and art that they created, you know, left an impression on us, and we feel like we've lost a friend or a family member and things. And so it's fitting that we discuss this and talk about them and honor them in this way. So.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Very much so.
I'm not sure where to start.
Yeah. They say these are no
want to.
Yeah, they say these are
Exactly.
no particular. I mean, we have notes, especially for the people that, you know, we know but didn't know that well. And they're really in no particular order, other than that's the way they ended up in the notes. It's not the order way things happened or anything.
And normally some of these are like, well, you know, you wouldn't actually be discussing them together, but it's like, well, there they are.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. The one that was the real gut punch to me was Alan Rickman, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the elephant in the room here. At least for me.
It was gut punch 1 and kind of 2 at the same time for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the other people that passed, you know, Dan Haggerty Haggerty was the star of Grizzly Adams. I don't think I ever watched any of the Grizzly Adams, but I know people that grew up watching like things like the Disney Channel and all that, and those channels that would show that type of programming. Remember him. He was a big star in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s. We lost another member of the Doctor Who family, another writer, Robert Banks Stewart, who is considered the father of the Zygons. He created the Zygons.
Yeah. And he created the backstory of the Brigadier that he's actually Scottish.
Yeah.
From the clan Stewart, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Terror of the Zygons sees the Brigadier in a kilt and whatever those hats are called, I don't remember.
Tam, I believe.
Tam, thank you. Yes.
He also wrote Seeds of Doom. Scorby.
another classic. Yes.
Yeah. And then I think of the at least the 5 that we are taking note of. There have been several passings since like right after Christmas, but you know, we tend to focus on the people that have ties to our fandoms.
Well, they're the ones that we know.
Yeah, they're the ones that we know that their work touched us at some point in our lives. I remember seeing the news article when Brian Bedford passed, and all I saw was theater star. That big of a theater person. That's sad that he passed, and all the theater people are obviously gonna probably know who he is. I did not realize until several days later that he was also the voice of Robin Hood in the Disney animated movie, and I was like, oh, we lost Robin Hood.
That's a bit. I don't know, because you don't realize, because some of those are, they feel like those older Disney movies, like those are so long ago. It's like you kind of figure, oh, a lot of them probably passed away already, and I was like, I didn't realize he was still around, which is sad to say. But then I was like, oh, dang, I love that movie.
Yeah, but I have Robin Hood on VHS.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't have it here in my apartment, but I have it somewhere in storage, and that's like one of my favorites.
I remember watching. I mean, I've seen it several times when I was a kid, but when Chauncey and I first started dating, and one of the first times that I went over and visited him at his apartment and met his roommate, and he had friends over and was introducing me to his friends. I remember hanging out at his apartment, and that's one of the things we watched.
Oh, cool.
Was Robin Hood. So it's always been it's not up there with Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and some of the other Disney classics.
But it's still a good one. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, some of it was like rewinding certain parts, because my sister and I love to do at the beginning with the credits, they have them walking back and forth and running back and forth, and we like to run and walk the same way the characters were doing. And that was how a lot of us were. Well, I was introduced to the story of Robin Hood, and for me, Robin Hood was always a fox, literally. And Little John was a giant bear, and Prince John was a really whiny lion.
Mommy.
Yeah, buddy.
Mommy.
Yeah. Mommy, and he sucks his thumb and doesn't want to play. I love that song.
And with Lolly.
Yeah.
Yep. No. That's that was that hit a little harder once I realized who he was, and that I actually was more familiar with him than I thought.
Well, and it's not like his voice is immediately recognizable. Like Pat Harris, we would know, or was it Pat Harris? Now I'm having a hard time remembering. I had a bridal shower today, and I just got back, and I'm tired. So if I'm a little off, that's the other reason why.
Yeah.
But yeah, or Bob Newhart, or Eva Gabor, or Pat Buttram, who's another Disney.
Mm-hmm.
But Brian Bedford, Robin Hood kind of had. He was the everyman hero for Robin Hood, so it's like, oh yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Classic Disney.
Yeah. And occasionally you can see Robin Hood's not very represented in the Disney parks, but every now and then you can catch Robin Hood and Little John out as character meet and greets. I don't think I've ever seen any of the other maybe Maid Marian, but they're not represented too much. But when they do come out, they're quite popular. So even after 40-something years of the movie being out, it's still got quite the following. It was funny because the article that we'll have in the notes, it was mentioned people's posts on social media, and it's like, oh, Robin Hood was my first crush. I was 5.
Yes.
Yep.
I wanted Robin Hood to come and sweep me off my feet.
Yeah.
Carry me off in style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh. Love that movie.
Yeah. Oh. Very catchy music.
Oh yeah, everybody knows that music.
Yeah. Especially that opening. Oodalali.
Oodalali, oodalali, go for the day. Okay.
You do not want us singing. Well, speaking of singing.
Yeah.
The first big gut punch of the week.
Yeah, David Bowie. Oh my. You know, a couple days after his birthday, and none of us really knew that he was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Labyrinth. I mean, everybody he's touched with music. I was listening to a podcast that normally does Bruce Springsteen, and David actually had covered a couple of earlier Bruce Springsteen numbers growing up, and It's Hard to Be a Saint in the City. And I kind of looked, and he does have an album of complete covers called, I believe, Pinups, and I think I'm going to look into it just to see and how many people he's inspired. And I mean, Queen was under pressure, and let's not forget his acting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jareth from Labyrinth and The Man Who Fell to Earth, and he even played Tesla in The Prestige. So,
well, when I first saw The Prestige, and I'd seen Labyrinth, and I'm not up on David Bowie as much as some people. Then I saw Prestige, and I realized that was David Bowie, and I was like, I've never actually seen his face, like, without the outlandish
makeup,
glam rock makeup, and I was like, oh, that's what he looks like.
Yeah.
And I really like the movie The Prestige. I know some people are kind of like, oh, Christopher Nolan's a bit derivative of himself, but yeah, that's one movie I quite enjoy, and his performance was really good, and to have him play Tesla is like, oh, that makes sense. Of course you would have David Bowie play Tesla.
Because Tesla was a little... he was a bit out there.
It kind of seemed like, he kept it, like you said, he kept his illness private, but he was like preparing for it, and he had all these things ready to go for when he felt like he was getting close. And I mean, it almost seems like somebody said it's like he orchestrated it, and it was like a way for people to say goodbye when the time came, which that's very fitting within his character, I think. So he did that on his own terms, and so very few people get that opportunity. So
and even too, I was seeing stuff on Facebook with the Doctor Who, the Waters of Mars Bowie bass. That was not him, and then some of the stuff, the one pose that Peter Capaldi had is almost a mirror image of a David Bowie album cover with the hand kind of going out, and it was just like, wow. Touched and influenced a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, and I think his persona of Ziggy Stardust was, I think there was a character, I want to say as a Doctor Who comic or something.
Yeah, in the 11th Doctor comics, there was, hang on, let me just get my 11th Doctor comics.
Yeah.
A character, John Jones, who is obviously meant to be inspired by David Bowie, and issue in issue 10, he John Jones takes on the persona Zavi Moonburst.
Oh, right.
That's
because his real name was
Davy Jones.
That was his real name. And David Bowie was a stage name because it's like, because at the time it was the Monkees were really big, and their front man was Davy Jones. Yeah, he's got to change his stage name anyway.
Yeah. Well, and supposedly, I was reading somewhere too that David was also offered a chance at a voice of one of the characters, but he had to turn it down. I think maybe it was because of his illness. I remember right offhand what voice what he would have done. For Doctor Who.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading that. Now I can't remember what all the details were. It was a fairly recent episode.
Yes.
Like a Christmas episode or something?
Something like that.
Now I have to look it up.
Me too.
I read a Doctor Who fan fiction. Ooh, it's been a couple years. That it was a short, but it was the Doctor, I think the 11th Doctor, and Clara, and the Doctor introduces Clara to his friend that's an alien who was struggling with he either his planet was destroyed or something, or he had to escape his home planet, and he was trying to resettle, and he was having trouble figuring out how he was going to fit in, and Clara ends up talking to him and convincing him that he doesn't necessarily need to be like everyone else. He can just be himself. And he takes that to heart, and he thanks her, and he goes back to Earth, taking on his natural form is like silver, almost kind of glowing, and he goes back to Earth and takes on his human form, and it's David Bowie. And Clara's like, "Wait, was that?" And the Doctor's like, "Oh, maybe."
Let's see. There were articles, like rumors that David Bowie was would be a guest star. Peter Capaldi said he wanted David Bowie to guest star. Let's see.
His spokesman at the time denied he was involved. He was approached years earlier to play another villain, Sherez Jex. Oh, in the 1984 serial The Case of Androzani, but was apparently unavailable. Holy cow.
I did not know that.
Wow. I could totally see that, though.
I could too.
No disrespect meant to. I can't remember the guy who plays him, but that's a fantastic performance at what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And Sherez Jack, but man, David Bowie doing that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah. I swear there was
something else too.
And it was more recent, but it was in the end it declined because he was so ill,
mm-hmm.
and it wasn't that long ago. Let's see.
Well,
we'll find it.
Yeah,
I remember seeing it.
Yeah. Well, and James Gunn said that he was wanting to have David Bowie make a cameo in the next Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. Maybe that's the one it was, because I had seen that he wanted.
They had approached him, and he was all for it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they'd actually tried to get him in the first Guardians, and they weren't able to make it work. And they were actually going to they were going to actually have 2 David Bowie songs in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and the other scene, the other song got cut. So now James Gunn is going to try and get it into the second one, because then actually I remember reading saying that would have made David Bowie the only artist to have 2 songs in the movie.
Well, that would be fitting for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah,
have 2 David Bowie songs. It just seems like it would work.
Yeah, I mean it's outer space, and the time period of his music works too, with all that 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
Cool classic rock.
Yeah. Well, they did. They had Moon Age Daydream, so it's So that works.
Yeah. So he is part of Awesome Mix Volume 1, and that definitely fits because his music it's amazing. I mean, I never have shied away from saying that, if I believed in like reincarnation, that I'm pretty sure in a past life I was someone that grew up in like the 60s and 70s or lived during the 60s and 70s, because I love that era for music. I mean, the Beatles and Queen and the Eagles and the Rolling Stones, and it's just, if I'm not listening to Disney music at work for my background noise, it is the classic rock station, so that I can get my fix of the British Invasion and all that classic rock. And I love all of it. And Chauncey asked me the other day, what's my favorite David Bowie song? I'm like, I don't know if I can pick just one.
Well, the funny thing is, because I'm kind of like you, Rachel. I've listened to 60s and 70s music, but I credit that to my dad, because like I would, when I was a kid, I would go around and drive around on the farm in the tractors and the trucks with him, and we would always listen to 70s, 60s, and 70s and early 80s rock on the radio, and that's just what we listened to, and that's kind of stuck with me. And so, like, when David Bowie passed away, and people are talking about their favorite Bowie songs, I'm like, wait, he sang that one? I didn't realize,
yeah,
like, Heroes is one. Golden Years is another one I didn't realize was his. There was a couple others. Now that I'm trying to think of them, I can't think of all the names. But I was like, oh yeah, I guess that would be. That would
once you
him.
listen, once you really listen to the voice, you're like, oh yeah, that is him. So
yeah, I'd have to go through and look at all the David Bowie songs in the lists and things like. Oh yeah, that one. I like that one a lot. And
I mean, his voice had a bit of a chameleon, almost like his face.
Yeah.
That it would change depending on the type of song, the type of musical influence it was, whether it was something that was, more jazzy, something that was more poppy, something that was, new age or whatever. I mean, he took musical influences from mainstream to very obscure types of music from all over the world and put that into his own music. And they were talking about him on NPR, I think. And I guess in an interview at one point, Bowie said that he didn't really consider himself a musician. He didn't think his voice really qualified to make him a proper singer. But he just did it because he enjoyed it. So I think, he's not, he's not going to be, he wouldn't be singing opera anytime soon, I think, with his voice, but his voice fit the type of music that he did, even though, you listen to, just some of his most popular songs and the voice, it changes, but it works. And that's the thing. So, but I don't think I can pick just one, although Under Pressure with Freddie Mercury from Queen, though, that's an amazing tune, though. Especially if you listen to the vocals only, where they've plucked away the music.
Oh yeah,
chills, man.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, because I was out of town last weekend, and we were visiting some of Jared's family in Idaho, and we were off doing some errands while we were there, and we were waiting somewhere, and we were just kind of flipping through Facebook because we were bored, and he came up with this thing that was like Freddie Mercury singing Bohemian Rhapsody and it was just the vocals, and so I was like, wow, that is really cool. Kind of weird, but cool.
Yeah.
So, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of anybody doing something like that. And then I found the one with David Bowie and Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is a thing then.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's from remastering songs for new releases, and when they remaster them, they're able to, people with apparently time on their hands are like, let me, render this out, or whatever the proper terminal. I'm thinking computer age was like, let me render this out, but take away all the instruments and see what it sounds like. And for modern artists, probably not a good idea. Like Britney Spears without all the instruments and stuff would probably like, not sound the best.
And but that's the difference, because I was thinking about it the other day, because I had the radio on. I was like the oldie station that has always stayed the same. It's the same station that I've listened to with my dad, and like we've had radio stations change and formats go away and different things, but this one radio station has always been around. It's the same call number, the same, and it's 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it's owned by the same people. And it's just for over 30 years, it's always just been here. And I'm like, why is this one stuck around? And I'm thinking, well, back then, David Bowie's part of this. Back then, people, the music and the vocals actually mattered, because you didn't have all these different things, and so they actually had to have good music, and it sticks around, and like radio stations like that, and that's something that not everybody likes country, not everyone likes rap, not even everybody likes modern pop songs, but generally speaking, everybody can agree on, let's listen to some classic 70s rock or something like that, because it just sticks with you, and people just still love it.
Yeah.
And even if they don't particularly love it, it's like, oh yeah, I can listen to that. No problem. Just it's the radio station everyone can agree on.
Yeah. You walk into somebody's office and it's like, show of hands, would you rather listen to Queen or Justin Bieber?
And everyone's like, Queen.
Queen, please.
Yep. Bohemian Rhapsody, let's do that.
Yeah. You better all sing along.
Pick one.
Make sure you do the headbanging like
Wayne's
Wayne's World, like Wayne and Garth, because you do. Bohemian Rhapsody comes on in the car. As soon as you hit that guitar section, you're like,
sing the parts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we're a bit young for the classic, most recognizable David Bowie songs. That doesn't mean that we can't enjoy it, but I think for our people our age and maybe slightly older, to us, he's the Goblin King from Labyrinth.
Oh yeah. And I have a slight confession. I didn't see Labyrinth in its entirety until like maybe 4 years ago, but I have seen it.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah. And I love it, and I'm like, I want to watch it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do our more than once, I think, on like Friday Night Who, or doing a tweet along for something completely different. Somebody has made a reference, and all of a sudden we're all tweeting the lyrics to Dance Magic Dance.
Yep. That happens more than you think it would.
Yeah.
And then someone fishes us out of YouTube, and we're
post the link, and then we're all on YouTube.
The link, and we're all like dancing, and we're probably watching some alien menace destroy whatever in Doctor Who, but the rest of us are like, dance, magic, dance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
I still need to write that fanfic of Jareth and Rumpelstiltskin meeting. I would have loved to have had that Once Upon a Time crossover, because Disney won, the rights.
Yeah.
I would have that would have been something to see him and
that
David Bowie and Bobby Carlyle acting together. I think that would have been something to.
The universe might have exploded.
Yeah,
just a little.
That'd have been awesome. That'd be a good reason.
You know what? Put it on your list of wish. Dream team ups for the next life or something. I don't know.
Until then, somebody that's really good with video editing get working on that.
Yes.
Clips from Once Upon a Time. Clips from Labyrinth.
Yeah. Who's the person that did the Doctor Who and Sherlock?
Yeah.
Sherlock walks into the TARDIS. Like, do that.
Yeah. Yes, please. Make that happen.
Yeah. The one thing I really like. Well, I mean, Labyrinth is just it's it's fantasy, it's quirky Muppet humor, it's good music, it's there's romance to it, even though it's kind of odd romance.
Yeah, it's a bit creepy.
Yeah, but it's just got all those mix of those great elements that you just that shouldn't on paper it shouldn't work, but because Jim Henson was a visionary,
George Lucas was with it.
Oh yeah, George Lucas. And you got David Bowie involved. It's like it all just works and it clicks together, and it like these are the people that you need working together to do this kind of thing. And you got all the creative everything going, and it's fantastic. And I don't know who else could have played that role, because because there was that letter that was going around about that Jim Henson sent to David Bowie, that he was like trying to convince him to play the role. And I don't know maybe how much convincing David Bowie needed, but from the letter it just kind of sounded like that David Bowie was iffy about the idea, but Jim Henson had to convince him, like, yeah, you would be perfect for this role. I hope you really consider it, sort of thing. And so it's a good thing he said yes.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And I do like the fan theory that goes around that Jareth was actually in love with a woman named Sarah. She was a human, and he wanted to build this kingdom for her and do all these wonderful things, but he never got the chance because she died. And then so he's always looking for dark-haired girls named Sarah because he hopes that that's her. And I'm like, oh, that is so sweet. It makes the creepiness of Jareth, with the Sarah in the movie a little bit more
creeping on a 15-year-old.
Yes, I mean the movie isn't creepy. It's got enough. I mean, there's a little bit of. I don't want to keep saying creepy, but like, it's sort of like the way Nightmare Before Christmas is scary. I mean, it's a Halloween type of thing, but it's not. You're not gonna go to bed and can't get to sleep because you were too scared. It's. You know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
You might be scared of the sweeper at first, but then once you see what the sweeper actually is, it's not that scary.
Well, I mean, it's a Henson creation, so it's not... It's campy, creepy at the same time, and I think a lot of that has to do with everyone who was involved. It was Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and George Lucas, and Terry Jones of Monty Python wrote the screenplay, so...
Yeah, it's like all these people that you're like, wow, yeah, it's like you never think to bring all those creative talents together, but then you do, and it's like, and they create magic. It's wonderful.
Well, and then a little tie-in for the Star Trek Next Gen buffs. Yates McFadden was a Henson puppeteer, and she did the choreography for this movie before she took on her major acting role, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and David Bowie did all the music. So
all the music, yep.
Well, we joke about the UK only having 12 actors, but even in the US and Hollywood, maybe they're not all as connected, but they still there's always some little connection that you can bring up to other things. But
it's 80s fantasy at its best.
Yes.
Oh yeah. The 80s were kind to fantasy buffs.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Speaking of fantasy, I guess.
I don't want to. If
I don't want to either. This one.
When I was put, it's like when I finally was like, okay, well, whether we do a regular show or this becomes the focus, it's going to be on our news regardless. And even though, we don't necessarily need to put it on our news notes because it's not like we're going to forget, but just to keep things as regular as the way we do the show, I knew I had to put it in there, and typing it out and copying and pasting the news link was just... This is hard. I'm tearing up. This one has been really, really hard, and I was in serious denial. I remember, I remember waking up, what was it, Tuesday, when the news came out about David Bowie, and waking up and seeing that, and by the time I got it for work, even though it was still fairly early, it had spread. All the major news organizations had it, and everyone was posting memes already, and
like when CNN and Fox and MSNBC and all these other news, when they're reporting it, it's like, okay, I guess we have to accept this is not a stupid hoax.
Yeah,
some idiot on Twitter.
It was a shock, but it was like, okay, yeah, well, I was trying to kind of discuss this because, people like Lemmy from Motorhead passed right after Christmas. So, these three were kind of like the big three that most people were talking about. And people making cartoons and memes and stuff about were these three. But, when you think of rock stars, you kind of expect them to go out in like a blaze of glory because, you think of rock stars from like the 60s and 70s. It's all sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And that's, woo! And that's kind of what you expect from rock stars. So it's shocking yet not. And it's like you don't want them to go in any sort of shocking fashion, but at the same time with some people who've lived a certain lifestyle, it's not that shocking. Granted, in both Lemmy and David Bowie's case, it was cancer, which really sucks. It's not like they went out partying hard. It's this awful disease that ended up taking their lives. But when I woke up Thursday. And, first thing I do is pick up my phone, check Facebook. It's like, okay, well, what happened overnight? And, what did Donald Trump say? It's pissing people off, that sort of thing. What's the weather like? Checking that sort of thing.
What Minions memes are people sharing
exactly,
today?
What's gone viral while I was asleep. And it was a single Facebook page that kept posting this news, and it was a Doctor Who fan page, which is threw a red flag for me at first. And looking at the comments, and like half the people are like, "Oh, it's a hoax," and they were posting a link to something else that apparently within the last couple of weeks there actually had been a hoax, because people have way too much time on their hands. Because that happens every now and then. You'll see the hoax news articles where it's like Oprah has died, or what was it, Bon Jovi, and like Bon Jovi's posting a picture on Instagram like, no, not dead.
Or the funniest one is Betty White dies, DYE.
Yeah.
Yes, peacefully in her home, and her dyeing her hair, her house.
Yeah.
That one got my mom. I was like, Mom, that's from The Onion, and do you know how to spell dyes?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like...
and I honestly thought this one was like, oh, this is a Betty White thing, isn't it?
I did too, because a lot of people were posting the link to the hoax page, and then other people were saying, no, the BBC is reporting it. But at that time, the BBC was the only people... a legit news source. And I was thinking, oh, well, if they're the only ones, then, the poor BBC, they've been taken by whoever did this. But by the time I got to work, and suddenly the Today Show and CNN and Yahoo and all these others and NPR were reporting it as well, and it's like, either they've all been taken, or this is real.
The family got out of the state.
And
of course, we're all talking about Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
And I hate with you, Rachel. I am still so in denial. I even wrote about it in the news for my job, and my first thing was like, I wanted this to be a joke. I wanted it to be a hoax. And the more I see more news sources talking about this,
when I first saw it, I thought it was a hoax. Like, no, can't be.
It just it
shocked me because I was watching my local morning news and breaking news, and they said it. I'm just like, what?
I even posted it
on the phone, and I'm seeing the same stuff, and it's like,
I even said something in our chat when I first saw it, and I was like, "Oh Lord, somebody's got way too much time on their hands." And then I was like "Oh, the BBC."
Saying Alan Rickman's dead. It's like, no way, and it's like, I guess so.
I think it was first of all who it was, and second, he's the same age, and it was David cancer Bowie. As David Bowie. And it just seemed way, way too coincidental for it to be real.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we lost David Bowie, and then this news came out about Alan Rickman. I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Although, I admit it's a little weird to think that Alan Rickman and David Bowie were the same age. I don't know why.
So weird.
I mean, there's...
Well, and, David...
because I always think of Alan Rickman as playing older characters, and David Bowie is the Goblin King.
Yeah. It's like, well, David Bowie, he had been, keeping to himself at home as he was suffering through this, but he was, occasionally he was putting out music. He put out a new album on his birthday, 2 days before he died.
New Bowie music.
Yeah, and it's like, now that I think about it, I can't think of the last time that I saw Alan Rickman out at something, red carpet or something. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't out and about doing things.
Yeah, well, you had a movie in 2014 with, I almost said Keira Knightley, but it's not her, Kate Winslet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about Louis XIV, and he directed it, and he starred in it. And I can't remember what it was called, but something, a period piece. And I've seen clips of it online since his passing. I'm like, God, I kind of want to see that. I don't know how. I think it was something that was just in the UK, but
and he was just in Rupert Grint's new movie about the history of that nightclub in the UK, CBGB's.
Oh,
CBGB, something like that. Mm-hmm. And they're doing the sequel to the Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. And he was the voice of the caterpillar. So he's been working. Right. He was working on that. So I'm like, he's working. He's fine.
Yeah, he's doing stuff. It's all good.
So and I of course by then I'm at work, and I have to do my job, and I'm sitting there, and my coworkers are talking about it, and they're, I don't think, as emotionally invested as I am. So it's like I'm sitting there trying to work, and occasionally I'll take a break every couple of hours and chill and check Facebook and see how the rest of the world is doing. And I kept seeing memes and tributes and stuff, and I'm like, I can't. I'm supposed to be working, and I can't.
Thursday was just so stinking hard. Like, usually, because I work from home and I write about news and stuff like that, and that was the first thing I wrote about, because I woke up and I was still kind of half asleep checking my phone, and I'm just like, oh, bull crap, Alan Rickman is not dead. And I was like, oh, maybe he is. Oh my gosh. And I was just like, and that was the first thing. I'm like, politics, anything else going on today can take a back seat for 20 minutes while I write something about Alan Rickman. Mm-hmm. Because this is how I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And the website I write for is such that, we talk about pop culture and things like that, and we've talked about celebrities and sometimes the stupid things they do, or when they pass away. And I was like, and I did, my headline was, I interrupt politics to report the sad news that Alan Rickman has died. And there were a lot of people that were just like, I love him in Die Hard and Harry Potter, and I brought up Sense and Sensibility, and I was kind of surprised that people commenting on this article like, oh, I love that movie. And I was like, really? I didn't think that was like one of the top ones that people would have thought about.
A lot of people, that is their absolute favorite Jane Austen adaptation.
Well, that's my absolute favorite Jane Austen. I love Pride and Prejudice. Don't get me wrong, that both the Colin Firth one and the Keira Knightley one. But Sense and Sensibility with Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, and Kate Winslet, and all those. I love that movie. That is just I adore it. And he's Colonel Brandon, for crying out loud. I'm just like, how can you? And I'm just, and we talked about this when we did our mystery actor thing, and we pulled Alan Rickman's name out of the hat, but I said it then, I'll say it now. Alan Rickman made me tolerate Snape. His book, and I said it in my article when I wrote about it. It's like, I don't like book Snape. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care that I'll say, oh, he's this tragic romantic hero. No, I cannot forgive Severus Snape for all those crappy things he did in the books. I am firmly
you don't
in
have
Harry's
to.
shoes.
Harry Potter did, but that doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah. Until Harry named his son after him, and I'm just kind of like, you idiot. But when I watch Alan Rickman play Severus Snape,
mm-hmm.
and and there's that, and a lot of times in that scene in from Deathly Hallows where they have the flashback of when Snape finds Lily's dead body and he's like holding her and crying, and he's talking about, after all this time, always. I'm just like, okay, I can believe that performance. I don't believe it in the book. I can believe Alan Rickman's performance of Snape, that Snape is a good person and he had best interest in heart, even though he was a complete and total tool.
He was flawed. He was a good person at the end of the day, but he was very, very, very flawed.
Very flawed. Extremely flawed. And I will chew your ear off all day about this, but Alan Rickman made that character come to life for me, and he wasn't just the greasy haired
bat of the dungeon.
Yeah, bat out of the dungeon, so and so, blah blah blah. And I better stop because I'm going to start swearing because my hatred of Snape knows no bounds. But gosh dang it, I love watching Alan Rickman play Severus Snape. Yeah. I can't explain.
Snape is my absolute favorite Harry Potter character. Always has been since I read the books. I mean, people may be like, what? Like, what about Harry Potter and McGonagall and Dumbledore? It's like, they're awesome, but Snape has always been my favorite Harry Potter. Even before the last book came out. Always, quote unquote, a good guy. He was on the side of Dumbledore and therefore on the side of good. I never thought that he was truly working for Voldemort.
Well, we're just going to have to agree to
disagree. But you're right. Alan Rickman really
as Snape
made
phenomenal.
Yeah, made that character
and
what he is.
I loved hearing his I can't remember if it was an interview or like a video or a news article like talking about how J.K. Rowling convinced him to play the part, because I guess at first he was kind of like, oh, he's just broody, grippy kind of guy, and there's not much there. And then J.K. Rowling explained to Rickman that, because at the time only the fourth book was out, so they really hadn't had time to go into Snape's backstory. But she talked to him and said, "Now this is what this character is, and you are perfect for it. And here's his backstory and where he's coming from." And that's what convinced him to play the role.
Oh, it wasn't a fly on that wall.
Oh yeah, and I even remember when I think the fifth movie was coming out, and Alan Rickman just flat out refused to do interviews because he knew what Snape's story was, but he didn't want to spoil it for the fans of the books, because the books hadn't come out yet, something like that. And people were like, "Oh my gosh, he's such a jerk!" But then people explained, well, this is why he doesn't want to say, and he doesn't want to get caught in an interview, or accidentally let something slip. And I was like, okay, good man, Rickman.
Yeah.
Well, even too, I was reading something too with the directors. Even told him, no, I don't want to play it that way because I know what's going to
happen.
This character.
Yeah. They would want him to do it one way, and he's like, no, that's not in tune to the character. And I've said that when we discussed Harry Potter, that if it's a fun thing to do, especially if you've seen the Potter films multiple times, so you don't necessarily need to focus on the plot. If you watch the Harry Potter films and just watch Alan Rickman, regardless of what else is going on in the scene, whether he's the focus or not, and you see his facial expressions and the way he holds himself and the things he says and the way he says them, it's everything that he says and does and looks is because he knows what Snape's true motivations are, and it comes across. And hindsight's always 20/20, but to watch that performance just makes Snape, at least in the films, you know, a whole other level that you don't get in the books because you don't get those visuals.
Yeah, and maybe that's what's missing in my reading of the books is I don't see Snape's facial expressions or hear his voice or you know the way his body language is or those kind of things because I see him from Harry Potter's point of view, and you know that's for most of the series Harry and Snape are just they're always at each other's throats.
But I think J.K. Rowling did that on purpose though.
Oh, I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did.
That's
but yeah. But I a friend of mine she's like doing a marathon of David Bowie films and Alan Rickman movies and this pile she has a picture on Facebook of the movie she's watching. There's The Prestige and Labyrinth, then there's all 8 Harry Potter movies, Galaxy Quest, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Sweeney Todd, Sense and Sensibility, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Quigley Down Under. Which when I saw Quigley Down Under, I mean that's like a western, and my dad and my brother love westerns. Yeah, with Tom Selleck, and I was watching it with him like, oh, my dad's watching a western. I was watching. Wait a minute, Alan Rickman's in this, and he just pops up in the most random places. I mean, he's the bad guy in that one. It's like a western that takes place in Australia, and I can't remember the particulars. It's been since I watched it, but it's just like he's one of those actors that did so many different things that when he shows up, you're like, well, of course Alan Rickman's in this. Yeah, because why not?
Exactly. So I think I mentioned this when we did our actor archive and talked about Alan, that I'd gone on a tear at one point and watched like everything that he was in that was on Netflix because that was easiest access to things, and you know, some things are obscure, they're independent, you know, type movies.
Well, and he did a lot of stage acting before he was actually in any movies.
Yeah, that too, but it's, you know, I know at some point, you know, I'm gonna need to watch Labyrinth. I'm gonna need to watch Robin Hood again. But there's so many Alan Rickman movies to watch, and at this point, it's like where do I start? And I started with Die Hard because I knew of all of his films that was the least likely to make me cry. It's gonna be a while before I get to Harry Potter because Harry Potter is gonna kill me.
Yeah.
Especially by the time we get to the last movie.
Yeah. The funny thing is, because Wednesday night, Jared and I were just at home. He was playing Fallout, and I made him take a break to eat dinner. And so while we were eating dinner, we were watching some YouTube videos, and he hadn't seen the Honest trailer for Die Hard yet. And they like, if you haven't seen the Honest trailer for Die Hard, go do it. It's wonderful. Even though I haven't seen Die Hard yet, please don't hurt me. But he was like, you've got to see this movie. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not really big into those 80s action movies because I never got around to it. So I'm going to see it. Just I haven't yet. But we were watching the Honest trailer, and they're just all like, and they're talking about like, they're talking about Hans Gruber and how impressive it is that this was Alan Rickman's first movie role, and it was the one that made him famous and solidified his acting career in film, and they were like, it's like, way to hit the ground running, Rickman, and everything. So I'd had that in my mind the next morning the news hit that he'd passed away, and I was just like, did I jinx that?
No.
But no, but yeah, so I'm like, okay, I need to watch this movie and see it.
You really need to.
I mean, it's on the list.
It's not family friendly by any means. It's not something you'd want to sit and watch with your parents.
That's probably why I've never seen it, because when it was big, I was very little, and my parents. I mean, my dad's seen it because he's told me the whole thing. I know the plot. Mm-hmm. I know what happens.
It's all context.
Yeah.
You don't have the context.
I don't have the context, or I haven't seen seen portrayals.
It's an 80s movie, so there's a lot of violence. Obviously, it's very violent.
In the Honest trailer, they show a bit with Bruce Willis's character peeling glass out of his feet. I'm just like,
yeah.
Yuck.
There's some nudity, although not a whole lot. It's only in one scene, and there's drugs, there's cocaine, and it's one of those '80s films that's how many times can we squint? This is obviously the '80s, so this is way before Wolf of Wall Street decided to go for the world. Die Hard has a good number of the F word in it.
Well, I know. I mean, I know what the I know what the catchphrase is.
Oh yes,
His catchphrase. Yippee ki yay, blankety blank.
Yep.
Melon farmer.
Yes.
As they say in the edited version. And I was like, what's
Mother
so bad
fluffer.
Mother. Yeah.
Yep.
No, the honest trailer, because at the end when they have John Bailey say all the things in his epic voice, and he did all the variations of yippee ki yay mf, and then at the end they actually have the word, and then they cut him off right as he's about to say it.
Because there is a nod to that in one of the Leverage, with Christian kind of playing the role of Bruce Willis's character, and then they do the cut to he says yippee ki yay, and then the guy who was playing Nate's father goes, "Found it."
I don't know if I've gotten to that episode yet. I will have to see.
No, Die Hard is. I'm not one normally for like action type flicks like that, but Die Hard, and a lot of it I think has to do with, it's Bruce Willis in his prime. Really, like the honest trailer says, Bruce Willis when he still cares.
I was actually watching not the first Die Hard, but I was watching a Die Hard movie over the weekend.
Yeah, Hans Gruber is one of the best movie villains of all time, and a lot of that has to do with Alan Rickman's performance. Even though you get a good bit into the movie before Hans really does anything.
Yeah.
other than just stand around in his expensive, custom suit and make his cronies do the work for him.
Well, and I saw, because everyone's been talking about, the 10 best Alan Rickman performances, putting out videos and talking about it, and when somebody even said that that Alan Rickman told them that it was due to him that they put Hans Gruber in a suit instead of like armor, or, an armored up, guns blazing kind of guy, that he's this very suave, kind of classy sort of villain, and so that lends sort of trademark, I guess, on that character. This is just what they said. I'm like, obviously, like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't really, other than clips of different things, but I can, just from the clips I've seen, I'm like, yeah, that's an Alan Rickman villain. Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of very suave, very, very, very smooth, and like he's not a guy going in. He's not going to get his hands dirty. He's going to just be the brains behind the operation, which works.
And just his version of the Sheriff of Nottingham. Any other Robin Hood movie I see, it can't put a candle to his portrayal.
Yeah, he's one of the best things about that Robin Hood adaptation too. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because everybody's all like, everyone's like, oh, that Prince of Thieves is such an awful movie, which I kind of like it. I don't mind it. And they're like, but Alan Rickman, the Sheriff of Nottingham, is the best thing about that movie, and even outshone Kevin Costner, even though this was like a vanity project for Costner. But this is Alan Rickman's movie.
Yeah. It is. Although I've seen a
chunk.
I've seen a couple of memes or whatever that because we lost the voice of Disney's Robin Hood and Alan Rickman, so it's like we lost Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham in the same week.
Yep.
Yeah. I heard, like, have you seen the best Sheriff of Nottingham took the best Robin Hood with him?
Yeah, I've seen that one too. So, yeah, I mean, Alan's just done so many roles, and when the sequel to Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland comes out, that'll, as far as I know, that'll be his last piece of work.
Yeah, it's kind of like when when Robin Williams died, and he still had a Night at the Museum 3 yet to come out, because they'd finished filming and they were putting that together. And then I went and saw that movie, and I was just like, this is so tough. Even though, Night at the Museum is supposed to be a comedy. Well, it is a comedy, but it's like, oh, gosh, okay.
Yeah. And the tributes, man, between Bowie and Alan Rickman, especially the Harry Potter fans.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I think Brittany had shared... Maybe Brittany, I think it was you that shared... somebody had shared the tributes from...
from the Twitter account?
Yeah, there was a Twitter account, but I think that ended up leading into another, I think it was on BuzzFeed, but it was specifically the park in Florida, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and all the fans there in the park holding their wands up in front of the castle, and then were, it was actually a worker at Universal, he was the one who did it, but it was kind of him and some of his coworkers came up with the idea to put the lily in front of Snape's office door.
The potions classroom. I saw that.
Oh.
Yeah, a bunch of people putting stuff at the 9 3/4.
Yeah, at King's Cross, at the actual King's Cross. Yeah, putting flowers.
If there's one thing Potter fans know how to do, it's to mourn and pay tribute to one of our own. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because Harry Potter has been around for so long, and it is so ingrained into so many people. Like that, a lot of people, that's their first fandom, or that's that's the first fandom that they learned what fandom was, and so like when we when we have people who've been involved with it, with the movies or whatever, pass away, and thankfully we have not had that many, knock on wood, right now.
That's the other meme going around. It's like after Alan Rickman is like, somebody start forming a protective circle around Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, and then the list kept growing. Like, somebody check on Judi Dench.
Like, guys,
like don't give death any more ID.
No.
Exactly.
Please. Like, stop that. I know you're joking, and I know you're trying to, bring a little bit of levity and cheer into our very fragile, mournful state, but stop it.
Yeah.
Give Death a Snickers, please.
Yeah. That was my favorite. One of my friends posted. It's like, Death, go eat a Snickers. You take the wrong people when you're hungry.
You pick from the wrong list. I know, and some people, and I won't list the name, but some people are like, Alan Rickman's gone, David Bowie's gone, but they list celebrities that are not
very well liked.
They're still here. I'm like, that's not very, very nice. But I understand your frustration and your hurt right now, so I'm going to let it slide.
You're still in the anger stage of grieving, aren't you? I think I went through several stages of grief just in the car that day.
I was, and the tough thing is like, for my job, I'm online all day, and Thursday is one of the days where it's just me and the other, my co-writer, she has the day off, and so I write pretty much everything, bar a couple posts from my bosses. And I write pretty much everything on Thursday and Friday on the website. And I just was like having such a hard time. Like I would have to go back to Facebook, and I would just see things, or even in the news, I would see news articles, and I would end up clicking on the ones about Alan Rickman, even though I'm trying to research something else. And I'm just like, he's gone. This is bullcrap. Why is he gone? Like, why? What is this? Yeah. And he really, relatively speaking, he was not that old. 69 is not really... I mean,
No, not when Betty White is still going around at 90.
Yeah. I'm like, how many more roles could he have taken on? How many more characters and stories could he have brought to life? I'm just like, we were robbed. The world was robbed. I mean, I feel for his family. My heart goes out to his family and his friends and the people who knew him best. and they're the ones that are hurting the most. But God, we missed out. We freaking missed out. That's just kind of where I come down.
And seeing the posts from the people that knew him best, it's like I got home that evening, and I'd seen Kevin Smith had posted it just a tweet, and I won't repeat it because it has some foul language in it, but it was straight and to the point and spoke every feeling that I was having at the time. And these posts from Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Emma Thompson and Chauncey was like, "Did you read Ian McKellen's post?" I'm like, "No, I can't read anymore."
I read Matthew Lewis's post on Instagram, and because these kids, I mean, Alan Rickman is like this well-known, well-regarded thespian, and these kids playing in Harry Potter, they're just starting out, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's Alan Rickman, that's Maggie Smith." There's all these people, and they're just in awe, and I can kind of understand that. And so like Matthew Lewis is talking about, they're queuing up for lunch in the canteen, and he's like, "Oh, that's Alan Rickman. Better, don't make any sudden movements." And and Ivana Lynch even said, because she came on later in the Potter franchise, and to her, he was Snape, and he was scary, and she never really talked to him on set. But then they went to they were at some like function, and they ended up sitting next to each other because that's how the people set him up. And she was all like, "Oh, I kind of want to switch," and they're like, "No, you have to sit next to him," because they weren't going to budge. And he actually ended up giving her he was like really nice and very sweet to her, and even kind of inadvertently gave her some advice that like she thanked him, like, "Oh, that's really good advice, thank you." And he kind of had this was taken aback, this according to her was taken aback, like he it really wasn't like profound words of wisdom. It was just something he was telling her, as someone who was experienced, imparting wisdom to the next generation. And about talking about acting roles and taking on things like, don't look for roles that oh, they're going to win an Oscar or an award, or you're going to be well known or well regarded. Like pick roles that you like, that you are well suited to, that you are going to love, and things that are fun, and then you'll give your best performance. And so she was just like, she had this whole big long thing about it. It was just like, even when you meet your heroes, even if they're your colleagues, or they end up being your colleagues at some point, then you meet your heroes and you're just like, then you find out they're just people, just like you. They wake up in the morning and put their pants on one leg at a time too.
Yeah.
But it's just, those tributes from all those people is just like, oh wow. I mean, just and to hear, because Alan Rickman is well known for his villainous roles, and he did them well. But then to hear how much of a sweetheart he was, and how kind and accommodating to especially his younger co-stars, was just very, very tender and touching to hear. And then there was another story about how he invited children of close friends to come to the Harry Potter set. So it was really odd that there were these kids that were gathered around him in his Snape costume, and they were just smiling and happy to see him, and the crew or somebody had told the rest of the cast, "Well, you can't do this, but we're not going to tell Alan Rickman no." So I'm like, that's the kind of stuff I like to hear. I'm just like, he was a cool guy. I mean, he was a great actor, and we admire him for his work, but also he was a decent human being, and he wasn't, snotty or about anything, and he was just a good man. So like, okay, I'm glad that someone I admired, to hear that he was a good person as well.
And I think, him being that way, and I think the kind of person that David Bowie was, their handprint as an artist with their various crafts leaves a big mark on society and all of us. But Alan Rickman is always, the quotes that you read from him is, all, things like, being, can't think off the top of my head, but him saying things about there's these parts that we play, and then there's who we are in real life, and the effect that their art has on the people that consume it, and David Bowie being who he was and not caring what people thought. That's one of the biggest things, and one of the things I've seen mostly from the tributes to David Bowie on social media is, yes, his music will stand the test of time, and people will be listening to it for generations. And his acting roles, Labyrinth, it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't a financial success, but it's great, created this cult following, and will
history has borne it out, and it's become a favorite of so many people.
Yeah, but David Bowie as a person, he took on these different personas, even as an artist, Ziggy Stardust and, all these things. And, he wasn't afraid to take chances and, try out something new. And I think Alan Rickman was the same way. Yes, he was known best as a villain, but he's done some amazing...
the romantic hero.
He played the romantic hero. He's played, not necessarily a romance or a villain, or just in I think I mentioned it when we did our actor archive about him. One of my favorites is just kind of this independent true story adaptation, Bottle Shock, of the first wine competition between France and the United States. He's the guy that orchestrates the thing. So it's not a villain. It's not a romantic part whatsoever. He's just kind of the guy orchestrating this event that happened in real life, but it's a great part. know? So, or as a comedian, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
right?
As Marvin,
his frustrated comedian in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, Galaxy Quest. That's another one that I've been like, I want to watch it again, and I'm like, I don't know. We might have it in here somewhere. I can't imagine Jared doesn't own it.
I think we own it. I'm not entirely sure.
But
we had trouble finding our copy of Die Hard last night. It's like, where did we put it?
Okay, no, it's in here. It's just we've got a lot of things to go through.
Mm-hmm.
The clip. There was the one clip going around of the beginning of Galaxy Quest where Alan Rickman's character is going, how did it come to this? And then the rest of the cast is like, oh, not again. I was in Shakespeare, and going on all these great roles that he's taken on, and then like Tim Allen's character has to drag him onto the stage, kicking and screaming at the convention because this is not his thing, and throughout the whole thing he gets so mad when someone starts saying by Grabthar's hammer, and he's just like, don't even start. I hate that line, and then by the end of the movie, like the one alien is dying, and he says it, by Grabthar's hammer you shall be avenged, and it's just very, very sweet and touching moment. Because he's finally embraced the character, and it's just like, that was actually the first thing I ever saw Alan Rickman in. I saw it because I knew he was playing Snape in Harry Potter. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. Like, okay, yeah, he'll be a good Snape, and I just didn't realize how good until I saw the movie.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
only saw Galaxy Quest recently, and it was enjoyable.
It's a fun movie. It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good spoof.
I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, I think we all kind of feel the same way.
Because if Spaceballs was the spoof for Star Wars, this is the spoof for
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of it'd be appropriate to watch, considering Star Trek's got its 50th anniversary this year, so
that's true.
You might as well do the spoofs right along with it. So
well, I gotta tell this quick story. So So when Jared was meeting my dad, you know the whole stereotypical, meeting the father-in-law sort of thing, and the only thing my dad really wanted was for Jared to tell him what his favorite Star Trek movies were, and he put Galaxy Quest on the list. And my dad's like, okay, I don't think my dad is actually Stu, because he would like it, I think. But it was just funny because I was sitting there when they were going through all this because my dad didn't want him to like do that whole, asking him for my hand in marriage, blah blah blah. He just like, I just want to talk Star Trek with him. That's all.
You've got a good one, Chrissy.
Well, Galaxy Quest is on Netflix, so.
Oh, it is. Okay, I thought it wasn't. All right. Well, I'm gonna.
Well, it is at least for me. You might want to check.
Oh. That's right. Canada.
But you might want to check just in case.
I feel like we've had this discussion before, but I'm looking right now.
We have this discussion a lot. Anytime we're like, is that on Netflix? And then Mitch is all like, yes,
Mitch
it is. And then we realize that
yes, and then we're like,
her Netflix is different than ours.
You have different stuff, so check.
Yeah.
And Galaxy Quest
Yes, it is.
Netflix. It is on Netflix.
Okay.
I went to go check.
It's too early. 2 hours behind everybody else, so once we're done podcasting, I might just watch it.
I might as well.
Yeah.
Although
I can watch it while I'm editing the show.
There you go.
Cool. And Bottle Shock is on Netflix too.
Yes, because Glenn was watching that the other day after.
You know what? I'm just gonna type in Alan Rickman.
Yes.
And see what comes up.
Yeah.
Come on, Netflix. The Gambit, Blow Dry. I've never heard of that.
I've seen that one. It's weird.
Oh, that's the Rupert Grint one. Bottle Shock, Galaxy Quest. Okay, and I own Sense and Sensibility and all the Harry Potter stuff, so I'm good there.
Yeah.
No Die Hard though.
No. No Die Hard. So you'll have to watch that some other.
Well,
format.
I'm pretty sure Jared's mom and dad have it. Or if they don't, somebody in his family owns it. We'll find it.
And watch it. You're missing out.
I know. Or we can just get it from the library. There we
Yes.
go. Problem solved.
Yeah.
I fixed it.
Don't make me take away your movie fan card, Chrissy.
Oh, there's no threat of that.
Yeah, I think other than CBGB, the Gambit, and the Butler, the others I've seen, there used to be way more of his movies on Netflix.
Well, yeah. Netflix, you never know what they've taken off and put back on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they cycle through, I think.
Yeah, you have to keep an eye on that stuff. Ooh, Silver Lining Playbook. Anyway, sorry. I love the book and I liked it. I haven't seen the movie.
Well, I think all things considering, I think we held ourselves together real well.
Mm-hmm. I think what helped is to talk about our favorites of what all these people have given to us and the fun things. And I think that's been, if there can be a best in this scenario, that's the best thing about this week, has been like remembering the good things that that all these people have given us, and maybe that's just in general, just kind of me personally. I'm sure other people have this way or this way too. Is best way for me to deal with a death is to remember all the good things and the times I laughed and the happy memories, and I think that's the best way to go about it. And I mean, I'm sad that I'm not gonna. There's not going to be any new roles from Alan Rickman or new music from David Bowie or from any of these other people. But, what we have is wonderful and great, and we can enjoy it. And I think that's the best tribute that they would want us to remember them by. And even, there was a quote by Alan Rickman about how, like, stories now I can't remember it. I'm like you, Rachel. I'm like, I've seen these quotes. Now I don't remember all of them.
Yeah.
That like stories are what, connect us all as humanity or something. Like, it was something really deep and profound like that. And now I wish I remembered it, but anyway.
We understand the sentiment.
Yeah. And I read that and I'm like, yes, this is why I like stories, and this is why I like fiction and all these really, good stories that with good characters and people that I connect with and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh. They shall live on.
Oh, yes.
Through their body of work. And that's a nice thing.
Yeah, and what a body of work it is.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
All good things.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad I didn't need this entire roll of Kleenex. I was prepared. Oh. All right. Anything else?
Find us online. Go to our website, the 5-ish Fangirls podcast.blogspot.com.
Yeah.
Find everything there.
We'll be back to our regular format next week.
Yes, yeah, we will. But you know where to find us.
Yeah. Well, if you want something to look forward to, next week we'll be talking Peggy Carter. So, Agent Carter will be back. So, give us something to look forward to.
And just a heads up, I think it's still online, but if you go to abc.com, they still have all of season 1 there. So if you need to catch up or you want a refresher, it's only 8 episodes, so you'll have time. Hopefully. Yeah. Maybe not by the time this comes out, but give it a try. I don't know how much longer it's supposed to be in there. And Netflix still doesn't have it because I don't know. They're dumb. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong with that. But that's another rant.
Makes no sense. I mean, they have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
They have everything else. Like, what's wrong? What's up with this?
I don't know.
Oh, well.
Dear Netflix, no. All right. Well, I say we didn't sign in at the beginning, but I guess we'll keep things somewhat regular with our format, and we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany Goku saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City saying goodnight.
This is Sally from Wisconsin saying good evening.
Mitch in Kitchener, Ontario saying goodnight.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. After all this time, always. Listening to the 5-ish Fangirls podcast. Any and all movies, books, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied.